This is 1973. There is no cable. There's no kids programming on television. And we definitely didn't have the money for more than one TV in the house. So
Recently, the star of Pawn Stars has been facing tragedies no dealmaker could negotiate his way out of. Behind the cameras, Rick Harrison's life began unraveling in ways fans never saw coming. How did the confident pawn shop boss lose control of everything he built? And what devastating events were happening while the cameras kept rolling? Join us as we uncover the heartbreaking reality behind Rick Harrison's recent struggles. Rick's first love and loss. The gold and silver pawn shop is known around the world thanks to the success of Pawn Stars, but the business itself began with decades of determination and hard work from Rick and his father, Richard Benjamin Harrison. Richard Harrison, often referred to by fans as the Old Man, was known for his strict negotiating style and disciplined approach to business. He refused to overpay for items and demanded that every deal benefit the shop. Customers quickly learned that convincing him to spend more money required strong arguments and genuine value. That reputation eventually became part of the entertainment when Pawn Stars premiered on the History Channel in 2009. Rick Harrison was just a kid with ADHD, epileptic seizures, and learning difficulties. Considering that Rick grew up in an average family, he had relentless ambition and refused to give up despite all hardships. But most people don't know that Rick has had an entrepreneurial spirit from a very young age. As a teenager, Rick began selling counterfeit Gucci handbags. The operation reportedly generated as much as $22,000 a week, an extraordinary amount of money for someone his age. While the venture was far from legal, it demonstrated the risk-taking mentality and business awareness that would later help him build a successful career. By the time he reached his late teens, Rick had already begun working alongside his father in the family pawn business. At the same time, another important chapter of his life was beginning. He was falling in love. In his late teens, Rick Harrison began dating a young woman named Kim. Like many young couples, they were trying to figure out their future while balancing work and personal responsibilities, when their relationship took an unexpected turn. Kim became pregnant. Although the news was surprising, both of them decided to embrace the situation and prepare for the arrival of their child. The pregnancy seemed to mark the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, but that chapter ended abruptly when Kim suffered a miscarriage before the baby could be born. Losing their first child was devastating. The emotional toll of the loss weighed heavily on both of them, leaving a painful mark on their relationship. However, the experience brought them closer rather than pulling them apart. Determined to move forward together, Rick and Kim decided to get married. Less than 2 years after the miscarriage, they welcomed their first son, Corey, in 1983. Their second son, Adam Harrison, followed not long after. For a brief time, Rick's life seemed to be stabilizing. He was raising 2 sons, working with his father, and slowly building a future through the pawn shop business. But once again, it was temporary. Shortly after Adam's birth, Rick and Kim's marriage collapsed. The details surrounding their separation have never been fully explained publicly, but the relationship ended in divorce. Rick suddenly found himself balancing fatherhood with the demands of work and personal heartbreak. Not long after the divorce, he met a woman named Tracy during a blind double date. Their connection developed quickly. Within months, they were living together, and 8 months later, they were married. Tracy helped raise Corey and Adam, and the family once again seemed to regain a sense of stability. But even as fame and success arrived, another devastating loss was approaching, one that Richard was fighting, and that would permanently change Rick Harrison's life. So who or what was Richard fighting against? Watching his role model fade away. Behind the scenes of the show, Richard Harrison was quietly facing a serious health battle. He had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a progressive neurological condition that slowly affects movement and muscle control. The illness can begin with small symptoms, slight tremors or stiffness, but over time it can become increasingly debilitating. For someone like Richard Harrison, who had spent his life working with his hands and staying active in the pawn shop, the disease was especially cruel. At first, the symptoms were manageable. Richard continued to appear on Pawn Stars and interact with customers in the shop. But as the years went on, the effects of Parkinson's became more noticeable. Simple tasks that had once been effortless began to require more energy and concentration. His movements became slower, and his physical strength gradually declined. For Rick, watching his father go through this process was heartbreaking. The man who had once seemed invincible, the one who had taught him everything about the pawn business, was now fighting a disease that could not be negotiated with or bargained away. Eventually, the illness forced Richard to step away from the show. In 2017, he retired from regular appearances on Pawn Stars, choosing to spend more time with family as the disease progressed. His absence left a noticeable void in the shop and on the show, and fans immediately began asking questions about his health. Then, on June 25, 2018, Richard Harrison passed away at the age of 77. His death marked the end of an era for both the Harrison family and the millions of viewers who had watched him on television for nearly a decade. The news spread quickly, and tributes poured in from fans around the world. Many people had come to see Richard not just as a television personality, but as a symbol of hard work, honesty, and old-fashioned wisdom. A public viewing was held at Palm Northwest Mortuary in Las Vegas, allowing fans and friends to pay their respects. A private funeral service followed, attended by family members and close friends who wanted to remember the man behind the television persona. For Rick, the loss was beyond measure. Richard Harrison had been more than just a father. He had been a mentor, a business partner, and the foundation of the family enterprise. Losing him meant losing the person who had guided nearly every major decision in Rick's life. The grief was overwhelming, but Rick still had responsibilities. The pawn shop continued operating, the television show continued filming, and the family had to adjust to life without the man who had always been at the center of everything. Unfortunately, the pain did not end there. What makes a mother go to war against her son? Mother versus son. After Richard Harrison's death, the ownership and financial structure of the family business shouldn't have been a hassle. So when Rick's mother, Joanne Harrison, eventually took legal action against her own, people were shocked. According to reports, Joanne filed a civil lawsuit in the Nevada State Court involving the ownership of the gold and silver pawn shop and several related companies. The case named Rick, the pawn shop itself, and other associated business entities as defendants. The lawsuit centered on ownership shares of the business. Joanne claimed that she had inherited Richard Harrison's 49% stake in the pawn shop after his death. However, she also alleged that years earlier, during a period when she was recovering from a serious medical emergency, she had signed documents that transferred her own majority share of the company. According to the claims in the lawsuit, Joanne had been hospitalized and recovering from a coma when Rick allegedly presented paperwork for her to sign. She argued that she trusted her son and signed the documents without fully understanding the legal consequences. If her claims were accurate, those papers would have transferred control of her 51% ownership stake to Rick. The accusation stunned many fans. On television, the Harrison family had always appeared close-knit and supportive of one another. Seeing a legal dispute between a mother and son unfold in public was difficult for viewers who had admired their relationship. Joanne also claimed that she had not received proper records regarding large amounts of money and silver that she believed her late husband had owned before his death. In addition, she stated that Rick had stopped making certain payments that Richard had previously provided to her. Rick strongly denied the allegations. Through statements and legal responses, he insisted that the accusations were false and suggested that his elderly mother may have been influenced by other individuals. The situation created a painful divide within the family. Legal disputes are often emotionally draining, but when they involve close relatives, the impact can be even more severe. For Rick Harrison, the conflict added another layer of stress to a life that had already experienced significant loss. The man known for calmly negotiating complicated deals now found himself in the middle of a deeply personal dispute that could not easily be resolved. Yet even as the legal battle continued, something unexpected happened in Rick's personal life. Could it finally be the light at the end of the tunnel that Rick needed badly? A moment of hope. Over the years, Rick Harrison had experienced several difficult relationships. He had been married multiple times, and each marriage had eventually ended in divorce. While he remained focused on his family and business, his romantic life had been anything but stable. Then, in 2024, he shared surprising news with fans. Rick had gotten engaged. His fiancée, Angie Polushkin, was a nurse living in Las Vegas. The relationship had developed relatively quickly, but those close to the couple described them as happy and supportive of one another. At 60 years old, Rick decided to propose in a way that reflected his life's work. He used a ring from the very business that had made him famous, the gold and silver pawn shop. Photos posted online showed him kneeling during the proposal, presenting the ring as Angie accepted with excitement. The moment felt deeply personal, and Rick captioned the image with a simple message. She said yes. For someone who had endured several failed marriages, the engagement represented another chance at happiness. Friends and fans congratulated the couple, hoping that this relationship would finally provide the stability Rick had been searching for. Not long after the proposal, the couple traveled through Europe together. Rick shared photos from the trip, including elegant dinners and sightseeing in Paris. The images showed a relaxed side of him that fans rarely saw on television. For a brief moment, life seemed to be improving. After years of stress, legal disputes, and family struggles, Rick appeared genuinely happy. But that sense of happiness would soon be shattered by the most devastating tragedy he had ever faced. Could this be the final straw that breaks Rick for life? Adam's battle with addiction. Unlike his older brother, Corey Harrison, who became a familiar face to millions of viewers through the long-running reality show Pawn Stars, Adam Harrison chose to live a far more private life. While Corey gradually stepped into the spotlight and became an important part of the pawn shop's on-screen operations, Adam preferred to remain out of public attention. In his younger years, he had worked at the family's famous gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, helping with the business like other members of the Harrison family. But eventually, he decided to step away from the store and pursue his own path away from the cameras. Because of that decision, many viewers who watched Pawn Stars for years were not even aware that Rick had another son. Adam's absence from the show meant that most of his life unfolded quietly, away from television audiences who closely followed the Harrison family's activities inside the shop. It wasn't until Rick spoke about it that fans knew Adam had been facing struggles that few people outside the family fully understood. According to later interviews given by his father, Adam had been battling substance addiction for nearly 20 years. At different points in his life, Adam entered rehabilitation programs and attempted to rebuild stability. During those periods, he often showed genuine improvement, committing himself to recovery and convincing those around him that this time things might truly be different. For family members who loved him, those moments brought renewed hope that the long struggle might finally be ending. But instead of getting better, Adam's situation became even more dangerous as his substance use escalated. He eventually encountered fentanyl, a powerful synthetic substance that has become one of the most dangerous substances circulating in the United States. Even extremely small amounts of fentanyl can be lethal. Sometimes measured in just a few milligrams, depending on a person's body size and tolerance. Its potency has made it one of the leading contributors to overdose deaths across the country. For families already worried about a loved one battling addiction, the presence of fentanyl represents an especially frightening possibility. In January 2024, that fear became a tragic reality for the Harrisons. Adam had been living in a guest house on a property in Las Vegas, separate from the main residence. A woman who was renting the main house began to grow concerned after noticing that Adam had not responded when she knocked on the door for several days. Initially, there was a message from Adam explaining that he was feeling sick and would be quarantining himself, which did not immediately seem unusual. Illness and temporary isolation are common enough that the explanation appeared reasonable at first. However, as more time passed without any response, the situation began to feel increasingly alarming to those nearby. Eventually, the woman contacted the landlord and explained that Adam had been unresponsive for an extended period. Concerned about his well-being, the landlord entered the guest house to check on him. Inside the room, Adam was found lying unresponsive in bed. Emergency services were contacted, and officers from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department arrived at the scene to investigate what had happened. According to reports from the investigation, officers discovered evidence suggesting drug use nearby, including items such as foil, straws, and small containers associated with illegal substances. Investigators later concluded that Adam Harrison had died from a fentanyl overdose. He was only 39 years old. The news spread quickly across media outlets, shocking many fans who had followed the Harrison family through more than a decade of Pawn Stars episodes. When the loss became public, Rick Harrison shared a simple but deeply emotional message on social media, alongside a photograph of himself with his son. In just a few words, he expressed the grief that no parent ever wants to experience. "You will always be in my heart. I love you." The message was brief, but its meaning was unmistakable. Losing a child is often described as one of the most devastating experiences a parent can endure, and the pain of that loss rarely fades quickly. For Rick Harrison, the death of Adam marked one of the darkest moments of his life, leaving a grief that would take immense time and strength to process. Tragically, the emotional weight of that loss would soon be worsened by yet another painful event within the Harrison family. Could anything hurt Rick more than losing his son? Another loss. Only a few months after Adam's passing, Rick Harrison faced another heartbreaking blow. His mother, Joanne Harrison, passed away in a Las Vegas hospital at the age of 85. The timing of the loss made the moment especially difficult, as Rick was still in the early stages of mourning his son. Losing two close family members within such a short period would challenge anyone's emotional resilience, and for Rick, it represented another painful chapter in a life that had already been marked by significant personal tragedy. News of Joanne Harrison's passing was shared publicly through Rick's longtime representative, who confirmed that she had died in Las Vegas. Fans of Pawn Stars quickly responded with messages of sympathy and support across social media platforms. Many viewers had watched the Harrison family for years and felt a connection to them through the show, and the back-to-back tragedies touched people who had followed Rick's journey both on television and in the news. Comments expressing condolences and support poured in from fans who hoped that Rick and his family would find strength during such an incredibly difficult time. Within the span of just a few months, Rick Harrison had lost his son and his mother. Two profound personal losses arriving so close together created an emotional burden that few people ever have to face. Grief rarely follows a predictable timeline, and the process of coping with such events can take years. How has Rick moved forward after these tragedies? Moving forward. Despite the tragedies that have shaped his life, Rick Harrison continues to move forward with the business and television career he helped build over decades. The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop remains one of the most recognizable pawn shops in the world, drawing visitors from across the globe who want to see the famous counter where so many memorable deals have taken place. While Rick no longer spends every day working behind the counter the way he once did, he remains involved in the broader operations of the business and continues participating in television projects connected to the Pawn Stars brand. In recent years, his role has gradually evolved. Rather than handling every negotiation personally, Rick has shifted toward a more flexible schedule that allows him to focus on larger ventures, media appearances, and projects like Pawn Stars Do America. For someone who has spent decades constantly working and managing a high-profile business, slowing down can provide the opportunity to reflect on the experiences that shaped the journey. Rick now appears to spend more time traveling, maintaining personal relationships, and focusing on the aspects of life that exist beyond the pawn shop floor. While the losses he has experienced cannot be erased, many fans hope that this new stage of his life will allow him to find moments of peace and happiness after years of hardship. The pawn shop empire he helped create continues to thrive, and the television show that made him famous remains a cultural phenomenon watched by audiences around the world. Do you think Rick Harrison will finally find peace after everything he has endured? And could this new stage of his life bring the stability and happiness he has long been searching for? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out the next video on your screen.